I'm James Swanwick. This is the Alcohol Free Lifestyle Podcast, where you learn to live a life of health, wealth, love, and happiness.
It makes sense why we got hooked on alcohol. Your drinking is never going to get better on its own. We've got to do something big. Life on the other side of drinking is better than anything we can imagine today. I turned 53 last week, and those were the three key takeaways from the conversation I had with 43-year-old me. I'm going to talk about those takeaways today on this podcast. Thanks for joining me, everyone. My name is Victoria English. I'm the head coach here at Alcohol Free Lifestyle. I love spending time with you and sharing my thoughts, the science, all the things around alcohol and how to achieve an alcohol-free lifestyle. So yeah, my birthday was last week, 53 and alcohol-free. Very exciting. As a breast cancer survivor, I'll admit it, I get really excited about birthdays. Yes, I look in the mirror and there's a couple more laugh lines, crinkles around the eyes. It's all good. I'm supporting my health, supporting my body. I thank my body for what it carried me through during my years of drinking and breast cancer. And so I was really happy to celebrate. I had family here. We went on some beautiful hikes. And on one of those hikes, I was reflecting on being 53 and where I was a decade ago. And if I could sit down with 43-year-old Victoria, what might I say to her? To be honest with you, at 43, my life was kind of tough. Not on the outside, but on the inside, it was lacking joy. Personally, I was in a bad marriage. I felt powerless. My kids were teenagers, and I had a little one, and my teenagers were struggling with multiple issues, some very serious ones. I had a little girl. She was nothing but joy, but I worried, how was I going to get everything together? How was I going to be the mother that she needed? And of course, I felt like I was failing miserably as a mom. Again, not from the outside, but inside, because my drinking was becoming more concerning. I had started to struggle in my 30s. By my late 30s, it was becoming more and more evident that things were off. And it felt like the edges were fraying. There are so many things that we have available to us now that we didn't know back then. I had an idea of what an alcoholic mom looked like. And even though I knew internally I was in chaos, parts of my life were in chaos, I could hold it together enough to kind of make it look okay. I didn't look like an alcoholic mother, and so I couldn't be. I guess I'm okay. I also looked for people who drank like I did. And that wasn't hard to do back then. The mommy wine culture was really kicking off and getting into high gear. And I couldn't understand why. Why couldn't I stop this thing? Well, as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, if I could talk to my 43-year-old self, I would say it makes sense. why you got hooked on this. We didn't know a lot of the science that we know now. It was just wine. Well, that just wine was a highly, highly addictive drug that was hijacking my brain. It was completely screwing up my reward pathways. It was giving me way too much of a dopamine dump and leaving me in a dopamine deficit the next day while my brain would scramble to return to autonomy, homeostasis. I didn't know that back then. Nobody I knew that back then. And so I continued the mental gymnastics, beating myself up. If I would have known what I can tell you today, I wonder if I would have been able to do this sooner. I hope that my experience helps you, because that's why I do what I do. There's certainly no glory in admitting that you had a drinking problem and that you did something about it. Of course, I'm proud of myself, but oof, that's my claim to fame. Wow. But I do it because I care about other people and I want them to know what I've learned, what helped me, what helped it click. And so it makes sense. I also, like a lot of people, especially women, started drinking after a really big loss in my life. And I didn't know what I didn't know. I was experiencing anxiety and depression. This was in the early 2000s. I didn't really know much about it, and alcohol helped. It helped me catch my breath. That's how it started. If I would have known what it was doing, that my brain was learning that whenever we feel stress or anxiety, that it is being conditioned to then turn to alcohol, no matter the amount of stress or anxiety. It could be something huge or something small. I wonder if I would have changed early on, if it wouldn't have gotten as bad as it did. It was also so acceptable. You remember Sex and the City years? After that, that's really when females drinking together became popular, and my corner of the world embraced it. So again, the society part. And also as a mom, if you're listening and you're a mom, you know that mom guilt. Ooh, we all have it. And then the fact that I was doing the drinking thing, again, I was making dinner, I was doing all the things I was supposed to do, but I wasn't at my best. The mom guilt and the shame drove me deeper, drove me back to the bottle of wine, even after I promised myself I wouldn't. I'd gotten myself into a bad relationship and I didn't know how to get out of it. And I would believe the things that were told to me about myself. I would feel embarrassed and ashamed for being stuck in this situation. And so the shame drove me back again and again and again. And so what I say to my younger self is, it makes sense why you got hooked on it. To quote Laura McCowan, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. And so I leaned into that eventually. I got tired of pointing the blame on everything and everyone. I took ownership of my life and I got out of my own way. I stopped making excuses because at the end of the day, I was the one opening the bottle of wine and drinking it. Another thing that I wish 43-year-old me would have known was it's never going to get better on its own. Alcohol misuse is never going to get better on its own. This is not a passive thing. It is rebellious and aggressive and huge. It's not meant to be done alone. I kept hoping that once I got such and such problem fixed, then the drinking would get better. Once I got this issue with my son figured out, or once I got my daughter into the right school where she could thrive, or once I helped my other daughter with this or that, that it would go away. I tried to put all those buffers in place, right? Hot yoga every day, green juice, prayer, all the things that I thought would keep it away, except it didn't. Because at some point, I'd hurt myself, and it did happen. I hurt myself doing too much hot yoga. You can only drink so much green juice. And just between us, I stopped praying as much because I was so ashamed. And so alcohol never went away. In fact, it just got worse and worse and worse. Finally, I was able to look at the trajectory, look at the data objectively. I packed away the shame just for a little while and put on my lab coat, looked at it like a scientist and said, what's the data indicate here? The data indicates that nothing you're doing is working. And in fact, the drinking keeps getting worse because, again, it's a highly addictive drug, and it's going to need more. You're going to need more and more and more of it to get the desired effect. I was lucky to get out when I did. I was, in the dependent state, not the full-on addiction phase, but I probably wasn't all that far away. It's unlikely it would have taken too much longer had I kept going. And so I would dabble in stopping. I'm a fan of all paths to recovery. You'll hear me say that a lot. AA was helpful in some ways. I needed to understand a little bit more about myself. I needed to understand the science of this. I needed to understand what was happening in my brain. And once I dug into that, something clicked. And everything, all the little seeds that had been planted in the meetings and in the therapy and everything else, this missing piece came into my world. Well, I sought it out. I'm not going to lie. It didn't just appear. It's not just going to appear unless you're listening to this podcast. Maybe it is appearing, but it finally clicked. And I was so excited when I actually not only stopped drinking, but was really happy about it. And I had to learn how to do this and help others. I think it's what I'm meant to be doing with my life at this stage. And so, I get it if you're trying all the things, if you're switching from red wine to white wine, no more brown liquor, only white, clear, only weekends, only holidays. I completely understand. I've been there. It's not going to fix this. It's not. However, in Project 90, you're going to get so many of the things that I had to kind of piece together because Project 90 wasn't around yet. I wish it had been. But what a concept that by joining us, you can get so many of the things you need. We talk about what this drug is. We talk about how to navigate the world without drinking, whether that's in a social event or sitting home by yourself. We talk about what you really need. What do you need? It's not another drink. But there are needs. How can you meet them without the alcohol? Because it's not working out, is it? It's not working out. It's not going to work out after Christmas. It's not going to work out next summer. It's not going to work out next year. If you had been able to get it, you would have gotten it. I had to come to that moment of clarity as well. And I hope that these words will help you. There's no shame in it. It's just the booze. It's the drug being druggy. It's going to keep taking from you. You might be able to look back on, say, 5 years ago, what your drinking was like then, and compare it to now and go, whoa, I didn't think I would ever do what I'm doing now. I was the same way. And if you keep going, there's going to be more of those, whoa, I can't believe I'm doing this. The alcohol crowds out other parts, and it starts to permeate more and more. This is the good news. And the third thing I would definitely, that I did say to my 43-year-old me on our 53rd birthday. Life on the other side of alcohol is so much better than you can imagine. It really is. You know, when I would think about life without drinking, well, first of all, it made me cringe because I was at the point, like I'm guessing many of you, I knew I couldn't keep drinking, but I couldn't imagine life without it. I couldn't. That cognitive dissonance. But I thought the best I could hope for would be that I would eventually get to a point where I could manage to not drink. I thought that was the best thing I could possibly get out of this experience is, well, I'm not drinking. Not I'm happy because I'm not drinking, just I'm not drinking. I guess that's enough. I'll have to settle for that. Does that sound familiar to you? I get it. Oh my gosh, you guys, trust me on this. And if you listen to some of the interviews from people just 90 days out, you can trust us on this. It's so much better. Every single area of life gets better. Not all at once, not overnight. You know, those things I talked about at the beginning, the things that I would point at for why I could drink, why I deserve to drink. Oh my gosh, if you had my life, you would drink too. Yes, that was me. You know what? I was able to sort through them. I was able to identify what I could control, what was out of my control, what I could influence in a positive, healthy way. I'm not in bad relationships. I'm not in bad relationships with men, with my children. In fact, I can't believe I'm saying this out loud, but my relationships with all 4 of my children are outstanding. They're not perfect, but they are full of hope and full of respect, full of listening to one another, full of being heard by one another. What a gift. It didn't happen overnight. I never dared to dream of that. I also didn't know that the happy thing was available. I thought that I could manage to just not drink. I didn't know that I could be really, really happy, genuinely happy. I'll let you in on a secret. One thing about living an alcohol-free life is being honest. So I don't lie to you ever on this podcast. And when I say that I'm really, really happy that I don't drink, I mean it. I also didn't know that I would achieve self-esteem in a lot of ways for the first time ever. That I'd have self-respect, that I'd have healthy boundaries, not rigid, not blurry, healthy. I mean what I say and I say what I mean in my life now. I also didn't think that I would look as good as I do at 53. I'm not bragging. Look, I'm 53 and I've been through a lot of knee surgeries and really aggressive breast cancer. It left its mark. But what I mean is, I have a peace about me. My eyes are clear. My expressions are genuine. I smile big. I cry when I need to cry. I laugh a lot. And yeah, my my skin looks good because I'm not drinking. I don't eat a bunch of processed food after drinking wine. So yeah, it is easier to slow down the aging process and take better care of myself. I get quality sleep. Yes, I do, even in menopause, ladies. Um, and I have a good life. It's not big and flashy. It's happy. I don't mind big and flashy once in a while, but it's contentment and it shows in the way that I walk through the world. I stand tall with my shoulders back, my chin lifted. Yeah, I was a Pilates instructor for 15 years, but it's because I like myself. I like my life. You can have all of this. One of the reasons I'm so vulnerable on here is because I don't ever want anyone to think, "Oh my gosh, Victoria, wow, well, yeah, she could do it because blah blah blah." I am just like you. I've had all the thoughts, all the feelings, all the negotiations, all the workarounds to try to get this alcohol thing handled. It's possible, but as I said, it does take action. Listening to a podcast is passive and it's a big step. I'm really glad you're listening. It's not the only step. And so on every episode, we offer you the opportunity to have a chat. You can have that 15-minute call with me or one of our other awesome coaches. It's 15 minutes, and we're just going to have a conversation where I find out, like, I don't know, are you ready? Are you a fit? Are you someone that we can help? Are you willing to take that trust fall with us? Let us support you. Let our community support you. Be accountable. Be able to finally talk about this stuff with a group of like minded people. That's all it is. And if you're not a fit, that's okay. I may have some ideas of what might be. I've also got a bunch of stuff I can send you. And so there really is nothing to lose except all the stuff that you don't want, all the stuff that you're carrying around with you that alcohol is weighing you down with emotionally, physically, mentally, and spiritually. I hope I get to talk to you soon. Give yourself this birthday present. Go for it. You are worth it. And your future self knows that is true. Thanks again. Until next time, take good care and have an awesome day.